Yes, awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So we're going to go ahead and get started today. The presentation is going to last for about 20 to 30 minutes, I hope, and then we're going to get into some question and answer time. So we're really going to go over today everything that you could possibly want to know about applying to the PharmD program through the direct entry pathway. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that direct entry pathway means today throughout the process, but I like to say that up front. To make sure that we're on the same page and everybody who's here today knows what we're listening in on. So we have a number of pathways into our PharmD program here at Northeastern. All the pathways are wonderful and exciting, but today here we're to talk about the direct entry pathway, which is the pathway that you traditionally apply through PharmCast through. And is the graduate pathway into the PharmD program. So we're going to go ahead and get started. As we're going through, feel free to type questions in the chat. I am going to have the chat open on the side. If I feel like the question is relevant to the slide I'm on, I'll go ahead and elaborate more in order to answer that question. If I feel like it's more of a topic that is definitely relevant to the admissions process, but is maybe something we're not covering today, I will hold off on the end and make sure that I answer the question for you at the end, particularly if it elaborates more on the program. We are focusing today more on the application process, but I'm also happy to answer any questions I might be able to about the program. So let me make sure I am sharing my screen and I know you can hear me, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, so like I said, my name is Christina Folsom. I'm the admissions coordinator here at the School of Pharmacy. I help coordinate the process for admission into the PharmD program. So for the majority of my career here in the School of Pharmacy, that has included the direct entry pathway and the progression requirements for people who have come in through the early assurance pathway. I have been able to help with the progression requirements from coming through the non-professional years of the program into the professional years of the program. So that includes their interview. And now we have opened up a new pathway as well, which we're not going to talk about today, but I'll briefly mention a transfer pathway for those who have done some coursework at other institutions and are looking to transfer directly into the professional years of the program. But for the majority of my career in the School of Pharmacy, I focused on the direct entry pathway. So that's where my passion lies, is talking about graduate pharmacy admissions. And I have been at the school for almost 4.5 years. It'll be 4.5 years in August. So a lot of experience in the world of pharmacy admissions. So when you apply to a PharmD program, it's a really great, exciting time in your life. Most people, especially people listening to this webinar, you finished your undergraduate careers. Some people maybe have been out of undergrad for a few years. We're seeing more and more of that. And as the years progress on, the pharmacy admissions landscape is changing and more people are looking to make a career change. So if that's applicable to you, that's also applicable to a lot of other applicants who are also applying to pharmacy school in the past couple of years. So you're not the only one, but a lot of people are coming directly out of undergrad and looking to continue their education in a grad PharmD program. And it's really great, exciting time to apply to pharmacy school because it is a program that you're coming into and you are, in many cases, PharmD programs are within larger universities. But when you're applying to these programs, you're applying to the program specifically, which is traditionally supported by the school itself. So I work directly for the school. I don't work for the larger university central system. And what that means is I work with the faculty and staff. I work directly with the dean as well, who are direct employees of the school. So you're going to get that kind of firsthand experience of what it's like through the admissions coordinator of actually being in that school and getting that sense of community of what that program is like. So at Northeastern, the PharmD coordinator admissions coordinator is a great resource to use to get guidance on your application, any concerns you might have. We're going to go over a lot of different elements today, but keep in mind that email address that you see the screen here, and also is at the bottom of a lot of slides. Feel free to reach out with any application concerns that you might have. Oftentimes when applicants reach out to me and they have specific questions and they say, I'm really excited about applying to pharmacy school, but I'm concerned about this one thing. It's something that a lot of other applicants have reached out to me in the past about, and I'm happy to, talk you through it and answer any questions, and also give some context to how the committee has discussed issues in the past that have appeared on applications, and give some advice about how to best approach, discussing those elements in an application, putting the best foot forward when it comes to anything that on the application you might feel uneasy about. So Northeastern, going to very briefly mention this. Northeastern is, because our focus today really is on the application process. Northeastern is obviously famous, definitely in the Boston area, but now, in the past few years, we've definitely made headways in being famous in the United States and around the world for our co-op model. And this is really, really the shining star, obviously in all of our programs at Northeastern, but it makes a huge difference in a pharmacy program, specifically in a PharmD program. Why? Because you're integrating that academic experience with real world co-op experience. We are the only paid co-op IPI experience for a PharmD program in the United States. So what you're doing is you're combining that classroom experience, the time that you're in the classroom, learning the pharmacy curriculum, learning about drugs and patient care, and then your first semester in the PharmD direct entry pathway, and then you're going right out in your spring semester, and you're getting that real world experience. Now, obviously, IPIs are a required part of all pharmacy education across the United States, but what's different about the co-op model is you're getting 3 times the amount of experience, and it is paid. So you are a paid employee. Many of our students, after they finish their first co-op, are kept on part-time per diem at many of our co-op sites because they have such a great experience. They've already been onboarded by the locations that they have done their co-op, and they continue on that experience as they're going throughout pharmacy school. A common question I get today, because I see some familiar names here, but also some new names, is do international students participate in co-ops? And you definitely do. It's an integrated required part of the curriculum. And so anybody here who might be joining us from Canada or anywhere else in the world as well, you're very welcome. And co-op is an integrated part of the curriculum. And so international students also participate fully in all the co-op experiences. So in addition to co-op, obviously, Northeastern is located in the heart of Boston. So Boston has, for for a very, very long time, as long as higher ed has been a famous location for people just come from all over the world to study, right? Many subjects, but particularly it's a very famous location for the healthcare fields and for people to come and study in a hospital setting, right? And so we are in close proximity, as you can see on this map here, to some of the best hospitals in the world. And we have partnerships with all of these institutions, very close partnerships. So not only when it comes to co-op, IPI experience, but also your API experience as well. Northeastern School of Pharmacy has been around for a number of years, and we work hard to build up those relationships, as well as many of our faculty are co-funded and spend a lot of their time working at these institutions as well. So you have a very strong community connection between the School of Pharmacy and many of these locations, hospital locations, and then in addition to that, very strong connections on the pharmaceutical science end of things with the biotech and pharmaceutical companies in and around the greater Boston area. I know that map is a little bit fuzzy. It's because I wanted to blow it up and make sure people could see it. The hospital settings are very, very close to campus, definitely within a walking distance, but The biotech is a little bit more spread out, but still it's very interesting to see this Massachusetts, how much we really have in and around the Boston area. Very exciting. So when you're coming to Boston, you're coming to the greater Boston area, you're getting the best of, you know, the Northeastern experience, and then also the location of being in and around Boston. So that's just a brief introduction to that. But like I said, the main focus of today is going to be on the application process. So a common question that I get from applicants is timelines. So in addition to wanting to know about each section of the application, they want to know, well, what does the process look like? You know, what is step by step? What's going to happen to me once I apply? And you know, that should be, we don't have a problem letting you know kind of the general timeline of what happens. Certainly we want to let you know when applications open and close. So applications have already opened, and I'm sure, you know, in looking at pharmacy schools, we always encourage applicants to look at more than one pharmacy school, although we do hope you choose Northeastern in the end. Applications opened on July 14th for this cycle, and applications will close for Northeastern on June 1st of 2022. Now, June 1st seems like a really long time away, and it is, especially if you're listening to this webinar. Please do not wait till June 1st if you are listening to this webinar to apply to pharmacy school. Why? It's always best to apply early, especially if you are interested in a school. It really shows motivational interest to a committee that you are interested in applying to that school specifically. I can speak, you know, as on the Northeastern PharmD admissions committee, as I'm not a voting member, but I do sit in on all the meetings, and I can assure you that they like to see the applicants who apply early. What do we define as early? Early nowadays is defined as, you know, roughly, we don't have a set date, but anybody who's really applying, I would say by January 15th would be kind of early. So making sure you're keeping in mind that, you know, if you have all your things together, and we're going to talk about what you need to have before you hit submit and some things that can be pending, making sure you hit submit you know, sooner rather than later. Certainly don't wait till that June 1st deadline, although that is our final deadline, right? So you apply through PharmCast, and I cannot say enough wonderful things about PharmCast. It's a great application system. It's very user-friendly, very easy to use. And you have to fill out the different areas. The thing that's going to take you the longest to do, if you haven't already logged in and kind of poked around, is your course matching. Now you're going to have to do this for every single school. That's not a Northeastern specific thing. So make sure to kind of budget, depending on how many courses you have taken over the years at the different schools that you've gone to, an hour and a half to do that. And that's the biggest complaint I receive from applicants over the years. Unfortunately, that is something that is universal to every school you apply to. So you will have to do it. Once you do it once, it does, you know, auto-populate to all the schools that you've applied to, which is great. Once you've hit submit, your initial review is done by admissions staff. And what are admissions staff looking for there? Admissions staff are looking for, do you have all the elements of the application? So the initial review is really not a holistic review in the sense that we're not looking at the quality of what you've submitted. We're looking at, do you have enough letters of reference? Do you use your personal statement there? Is it submitted? You know, they're making sure there's no plagiarism. Do you have all the prerequisites done? And if not, do you have the planned courses in? I kind of like to call that like the open door, closed door stage. So making sure all those check boxes are checked off. So that's the initial review done by staff. If something is missing, then staff will reach out and the application is just put on hold until that information is provided. If everything is there, then that's passed along to faculty review. The initial faculty review is decided if applicants should be invited to interview. And then we make offers for interview. So interview is a required part of the Northeastern PharmD direct entry admissions process. And so we will reach out with interview invitations. We have interviews throughout the year, and I'm happy to, once I get to the interview slide, I'll give a little bit more information about that, but then I'm also happy to answer specific questions that applicants might have today about the interview process. So the interview day, you go on the interview. After the interview day, the whole committee meets and all of the committee members review the application, the interview score. They take a very holistic approach. They might even they might even ask me, hey, have you heard from any of these applicants? Have any of them reached out? That's the type of thing that's not going to be a make or break. No one's going to get in for attending the webinar, but they do like to hear that, someone showed up, and that is something that we track. So pat yourselves on the back today for coming here, and, I'll track all your names after this. You'll all go into PharmCast, which is exciting. So they do a whole committee review, and then after they do the whole committee review, an offer of admission is extended, or then obviously at that stage there would be a decline. Decline would be extended. So how long does all of that take? It really depends on the time of the year. I've seen, very fast processes go through. It also depends on, because we require, the in-person interview, it depends on if someone's local and they can get here quickly for an interview. I've had someone who was very, very local, who only lived a few streets down from Northeastern. I called them up and I said, hey, the committee reviewed your application last night, and if you want to come in, we actually happen to have an interview day in 2 days. And they said, yeah, that's not a problem. And they were able to come. So that's very quick. That's not necessarily the expected. We usually give people well over a month's notice about interview days, if not more. So that type of timeline depends on the time of the year, and we give applicants plenty of time to make travel arrangements depending on where you are coming from. So now we're going to deep dive into each element of the application. So today, again, just a reminder, we are talking about the Doctor of Pharmacy, PharmD, direct entry pathway. So in this pathway, you must have a bachelor's degree in any field. It does not matter the subject. It must be complete or in progress. So it must be completed by August of 2022 for a fall 2022 admission. If you have additional degrees, make sure those are listed on your application. It's very important that those go on there. We had one applicant this year who didn't understand. They had gone and gotten a diploma, I think it was, and another applicant gone and got an MA, and it was in a non-related field, and they didn't think it was important to list it because they didn't think that it would be relevant to the committee, and it actually held up their PharmCast application, because PharmCast looks for all that before it even gets to us. So any course that you've taken at a higher education level, that means after high school, make sure to have that verified and put in by sent to PharmCast and verified. It's very important. In addition to that, we look for an undergrad and a prereq GPA of 2.7 or higher is preferred. Now, that's the preferred level. The majority of our applicants who are offered admission and matriculate each year, the average GPA is 3.0, and actually even a little bit higher than that. But the 2.7 is really the preferred level that we advertise. PCAT exam. We do not require the PCAT exam as of July 2020. So I know that was last cycle ago, but I just wanted to put that date on there. We didn't require it last cycle, and we're not changing that. So no PCAT exam. Do we require PCAT or any other kind of exam? No, we do not. So we don't require the GRE, the MCAT, anything else of that nature. We do not require those exams. A common question I get from applicants is, well, what happens if I take the PCAT? Well, if you take the PCAT, it does get uploaded to PharmCast to all the schools you apply to. There is no way to change that. That is kind of like a standard PharmCast thing. Just like when you upload your personal statement to PharmCast, it goes across the board to all of your to all the schools you apply to. So every year, this only happens to one person, but every year we get somebody who in their personal statement writes about how much they want to go to X school, and that X school is not Northeastern. So make sure you realize that you are that when you're uploading that type of information that's generic, it goes to all the different schools. So if you do take the PCAT, it will appear on your Northeastern application. There's no way to hide that, but the committee won't look at it unless you specifically request them to. And the reason that we got rid of the PCAT is that we didn't find that we were seeing a great correlation between scores and people that we necessarily wanted to admit. There are lots of obviously articles on the internet and things like that about standardized tests nowadays. The there is the exception to that is international students. We do require the TOEFL, but today we're focusing on domestic applicants. So prerequisites. Another common question that I get a lot of questions about prerequisites. So here are our list of prerequisites for all of the Gen subjects. So we'll just focus on Gen Bio right now. We require 1 and 2 set, right? We require 1 lab between the 1 and 2 set. That's why you're seeing 7 semester hours. We have a high number of applicants applying from the California systems, particularly the UC system, right? So I always look quarter hours here too. What happens if you took A&P? You took AP classes in high school? Great. They must appear on your college transcript as the course. So it must say on your college transcript, AP credit for bio or test out of bio. And then it must say credit. If it doesn't say that, you can't get credit for it. But here's the catch to that. If you tested out of bio, most likely you tested out of bio and you're applying to pharmacy school because you're also really interested in science. So maybe you went on and tested out of Gen Bio, but you took microbio. You know, we can accept a higher level bio in place of Gen Bio if you didn't take Gen Bio because you took AP and therefore tested out of the Gen subjects. So those are the types of specific questions that the admissions coordinator is happy to help people with. So feel free to reach out to that PharmD admissions@northeastern.edu email with questions about AP credit and wondering if you can kind of substitute up. Yes, you can. Another common question that I get is about anatomy and physiology, and we're going to go over that in a minute. But I would like to highlight one more thing here, which is calculus or statistics. So I really want to highlight this word or because I got a lot of questions this year. It's or statistics. Why does it say or? We had some problems in the past with international students. And again, I'm not sure if we have anybody joining us who would be considered an international applicant today, but we had some issues with international applicants not having calculus, but they had high-level statistics instead. And so that's why we added the or there. Majority of domestic students, the committee is going to want, if you went to a traditional domestic US-based school for 4 years and you did it recently enough, the committee is going to want to see calculus or a higher level math course on that course. So we're going to go over and we're going to talk about notes on fulfilling anatomy and physiology course sequence. Okay, so I'm not going to read off the content here, but and I will send the slides around to everybody who participated today, and I will send around the recording. But this anatomy and physiology, what we call on the East Coast, if I have my West Coast people here, we call it A&P 1 and 2 is the prereq that I get the most questions about all the time. And I get it because it can be confusing and a lot of schools do it lots of different funky, funny ways. What we're looking for here is human-based physiology. And we're looking for 8 accredited semester hours and we're looking for 1 lab. What can you do to prove all this? You can send me syllabus and you can send me textbook if you really feel like what you took as an undergrad is funky. If it's not part of your undergrad curriculum, yes, you can go to outside of your undergrad curriculum and go and take it somewhere else. What you can't do is try to pass off other physiology courses as a human physiology. So that's why we have the shark here. A number of years ago, I think 3 cycles ago now, I had an applicant who took shark physiology, that's why we have the shark, and tried to convince me that shark physiology, and there was a lab, they dissected sharks, that that would fulfill the human physiology requirement. Now, I think shark physiology sounds like a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong, especially the dissecting of sharks. That sounds like a really fancy school, and I bet that they had a great time. But the human physiology is what it needs. You don't need a cadaver lab. We don't require that, but it does have to be human-based. So what we're looking for there is if your course that you've taken says mammalia physiology, and then the lab is all about dissecting frogs and pigs, and 50% of the course is looking at goats and farm animals or something to that extent, that's not gonna meet the snuff. But this is the question. This is enough information that should get you started. And then if you have more specific questions about your school, feel free to reach out. I have an extensive database about A&P or human physiology. You can take anatomy and physiology separately, or like it says here, you can take A&P 1 and then A&P 2. So you can take anatomy and physiology 1 combined, and then anatomy and physiology 2 combined. Again, only one lab required. And it's not a wet lab, so it can be taken online. Okay, remaining prerequisites. So what happens if you have remaining prerequisites? Please don't hold off on finishing remaining prerequisites like before you apply. Within reason. If you have if you have 2 terms left in your undergrad and you are a traditional senior, go ahead and start filling out that application and hit submit. That's quite a common situation for people who are applying to pharmacy school. Don't worry about that. If you have more than 1 term to finish, then the direct entry pathway if you have more than 1 year's worth of coursework to finish, then the direct entry pathway is not for you. There are other pathways to explore. Again, reach out via email. Happy to help you explore those pathways. If you have prerequisites, don't let that hold you up. What happens is if you're going through the process and you're still in the planning, you're still in the completion, ready to complete phase, you will go through, and those courses do need to be marked as planned in your PharmCAS application. So like I said at the very start, the initial step once you hit submit is admission staff will look through and they'll see, we'll go back to A&P, do you have A&P planned? All we want to know is, do you have plans? Because we need to know that you need to take it, right? Planned is really easy to mark in PharmCAS. As you're going through, it's going to ask you about planned courses. Save yourself the hassle and go ahead and put those in there now. And it's really easy to do that and then know that the schools that you've applied to, when they look at your application and then they go ahead and if they invite you to interview, they've looked at that and that's them signaling to you, hey, we've looked at this, and they're I'm not going to say they're necessarily 100% giving you approval of what you have planned, but it's a pretty good indicator that for now they're pretty happy with it. So, but what happens is you have until August 1st of 2022 to complete those courses and the degree if your degree is pending, and then you send the official transcripts to the Bouvet College of Health Sciences, which is the college that the school is under, and everything has to be sent in before you matriculate. It's a pretty standard process for most health science programs. So please don't hold off. Every year I see people trying to wait till the very end of the spring and saying, no, I have to finish everything. Unless you're trying to get your GPA up, which obviously is a different circumstance, don't feel like you have to have all the prereqs completely done and the grades in before you apply. Letters of reference. Okay, so we require 2, but you can submit up to 4. I always recommend that people submit up to 4 if possible. For a full list of who we accept and who we don't accept, please check out the PharmCAS school directory page because it's extensive and it would take us a while to go over them all. But in the past, applicants who have had the best letters of reference have submitted things from people who can speak to their soft skills. So that includes communication, critical thinking, and also faculty. If you have been in school very, very recently, it's great to get something from a faculty advisor. If we have anybody joining us here today who might be making a career change or has been out of school for 2-3 years, please don't feel like you have to go back and ask a faculty member you haven't talked to in years. That's a discussion where you reach out to me, we have a discussion, and we can talk through other ideas of who you're thinking of, and I'm happy to give feedback back on that. The letters, it's really important that people writing the letters can actually speak about you. We read a lot of these letters every year, so you want to get a good fit, somebody who can speak to your skills both academically and your soft skills as well. Experience section. Okay, so these are our husky puppies, by the way. Northeastern, our mascot is the husky. Experience section. This is a really important section that I'm seeing applicants spend less and less time on, which is interesting because it does go across, once you fill it out, it goes across to all your applications. So you only have to do it once. Employment, extracurriculars, healthcare experience, pharmacy experience. We do not require healthcare or pharmacy experience in order to apply to Northeastern, right? Some schools require a set number of hours. If you have it, it's definitely going to make your pharmacy application stand out, but it is not required. Every year, many people choose to come to Northeastern and are admitted based on extracurriculars, leadership, academics, lots of other things they're involved in. So that's not a requirement, but it is really important to give a lot of information in these sections. Now, they might seem brief and you might think, oh, why, I can only write, the character limit in each section is quite small, but it is really important. Sometimes applicants will upload a resume to the documents section. Our committee does not look at resumes because we don't require a resume. So it's really, really important to make sure that in this section, you're filling out employment history, extracurriculars. They want to see that you haven't just studied for the past few years, particularly if you are an undergraduate, traditional, coming out of undergrad, going into grad age. So make sure to include a lot of information there, your extracurriculars. They want to see the holistic picture of you. It's also really important for pharmacy school and for our committee in particular. This is the time of year when I see a lot of applicants panic and say, oh my gosh, they look at this experience section and they say, I only have 2 of these things, and they run out and they try to get the other 2 things. For grad school and our committee in particular, I can assure you, our committee likes to see people who are passionate about the things that they're passionate about. So it's really important at this stage in the summer and into the fall that you keep on sticking with the thing that you're passionate about. So if you like volunteering with at your local food bank, or you're really involved in working or volunteering at your Sunday school, or you are, you work as a pharmacy tech, and that's what you are passionate about, and that comes through on your application, please don't pause or reduce what you're doing there in order to also add something else on, because you think that adding something else in one of these other fields is going to help your application. It's really important for applicants to keep doing what they love, and that's what helps in the interview process, certainly, and that's also what shows through in the letters of reference and the personal statements. So it's really important to have a message for grad school about why you want to go to pharmacy school, and also be able to communicate that message throughout the application process. Okay, written sections, and then we're almost at the end, ready for questions. Personal statements. So personal statements, really, really important. We don't offer reading services of personal statements where I read them and give feedback, but I do talk through personal statements with people. So, we do a half-hour chat, and I'm happy to, talk about ideas that you have about what you'd like to write about. Personal statement, it's really important to pick one thing in the personal statement and write about it. There are other sections in the essay, or in the application, excuse me, where you can write about other elements. So sometimes applicants will call me and they'll have 8 things they want to write about in their personal statement, all of which are super interesting and very exciting. Pick one thing and then direct your letters of reference writers to maybe mention another thing that you didn't get to. Or if one thing might fall under the special life circumstances section, you can write about it there. Or maybe in the Why Northeastern paragraph, which is very important, you can kind of incorporate one idea you didn't get to in that. So if you really enjoy working part-time while you're in school and you want to make sure you highlight that, that's a great place to tie that into co-op in the Why Northeastern paragraph, right? And special life circumstances, if in the personal statement, your motivation for pharmacy has a lot to do with your love of chemistry, but in your special life circumstances, you also are really passionate about serving a community, an underserved community that you come from, whether that be linguistically or culturally, and you also want to talk about that, then the special life circumstances is a great way to also incorporate that piece into that and leave the chemistry piece for the personal statement. So make sure to use the personal life circumstances essay for any areas that you feel like you can't fit stuff into your personal statement and focus on one specific thing in the personal statement. And then I do mention that there is a written section for academic and behavioral infractions. It's the one very clear, like I said, open, closed door section. When admission staff are originally going through, if there is something where someone has an academic or behavioral infraction, it does happen. We come across it every year. There is an essay portion of that. And if someone doesn't, if they do have one and then they don't write an essay, that's not good. So make sure that if that is something that happened to you throughout your academic career, it does happen. And for a variety of reasons, make sure that you're writing something and extensively explaining in detail what happened there. So those are the written sections. Okay, additional information to include. Northeastern is an extremely international place. That doesn't just mean people coming here who are international students. That means international in many, many ways. And so make sure to include information if international piece touches your life, right? Make sure to include that in there, including in the languages spoken section. Oftentimes that's very interesting for our committee. So if that's applicable to you, put it in there. Honors, anything like that, scholarships you've received in the past, and then we're seeing more and more publications. If you've gotten a publication, make sure you don't leave that out. Okay, interview days. It says virtual here because I forgot to delete the word virtual, but your interview day this year, we just found out, will actually be in person, which I'm very excited about. Interviews will start in November and will run all the way up until June. And we will be having one in November, one in December, and then two starting in January. So 2 in January, February, et cetera, et cetera. You'll get a program overview, you'll have an assessment, questions, application-based questions, and you'll meet with faculty, students, staff, and prereq overviews. I'm happy to answer specific questions about interviews in the chat. And that is the end of my presentation. So I'm excited to see that some people stuck around, which is good. Unfortunately, I don't have a camera on this computer because it just doesn't, I can't seem to get the camera to work. But I'm excited to see so many people here, and I'm happy to answer questions that you have. And also, if you want to throw into the chat where you're joining us from, and if you are a undergraduate or you recently graduated from grad, where your undergrad is from.